So what we're going to do is we're going to use a different tool. We're going to use the slice tool. Now if you don't know what you're doing, it might seem the same, like, okay, I can drag this out, but I still sort of have the same issue. I'm still dragging out and hoping that I get everything just right. And I mean, it works. It's better than the other tool, but there's an even better way of doing this than trying to do it this way. This is still a bit inefficient. And so what this does is now when I go to Save for Web, it will show me these slices that I made, and I can click on different parts and I can save them individually, which, I mean, that's pretty cool. That's definitely better, but it's not as good as it could be. So I'm going to go back in my history before I start slicing back here. I'm going to go ahead and deselect. I need to make sure that I can see both my rulers and my extras. And the reason I need to see the extras is because I need to see the guides. So if you don't see any guides, or if you try making guides and you can't see them, make sure that you add them on there. So right now I've got these guides that I don't need, so I'm going to go ahead and throw them off of Photoshop. Just drag them over until they're off the application to get rid of them. I'm going to make some new guides. You want to sort of think of your website as having like different chunks, different sections. So this is sort of a chunk. This is sort of a chunk. Here's a chunk. And I sort of have a chunk on the bottom. And so I'm going to slice this. I'm going to create guides for the different sections sort of one at a time. So I need to isolate first this first chunk. And not all of it needs to be an image. I don't need this to be an image. I can recreate that in HTML. But this I can't. So I'm going to drop down a guideline here, and it's snapping to this layer. Now I'm going to drag a guide here, and it's snapping to the edge of this layer, of that blue bar. I'm going to drag one more to this side, and it's snapping once again there. So now what I can do is I can go into my slice tool, and I can say slice from guides. And now what this will do is it has perfectly sliced this for me from my guides, from my guidelines. And I don't want all of this. I don't need all of this. I just want this part. But it saves me some time. So now I can go into Save for Web. I can click on this part. I want just this part. And I can save it as my banner. I'm going to go back and I'm going to undo the slice for guides. And I'm going to start arranging my guides now for my menu here. Now right now it's not snapping, and that's because I'm not on a layer that has a border there. If I want it to snap there, then I need to find my layer, my menu background, one that I actually labeled, and make sure that that's selected. So now when I drag, it will snap to that layer. And I can pull this over. And so now I have this right here. I'm going to go ahead and drag down some guides here. I'm going to actually go ahead and zoom in on this because my arrangement wasn't quite identical in all of these. So I'm going to try to be careful and make sure that they all visually look about the same. And if they visually look the same when I'm this close, they'll probably all look visually the same when I'm zoomed out at 100%. So I'm adding guides around each one. Alright, awesome, like so. I'm not adding guides to these because I don't really feel like I need to. I could. I mean, I guess for simplicity, I could add a guide here. And I could add a guide here. Let's pull it down just a little bit because I just slightly missed it. So there. But I don't need to add a guide down here because it's the same bar. I can reuse that same graphic, so the graphic only has to load once. And that's fine. I guess I'll go ahead and do that. I'm also not pulling any guides from here because, well, one, as you can see, they're not all lined up perfectly. They're actually slightly off because they didn't look the same to me. And actually, I need to make sure that that contact is the same space away as the cloud. So I'm glad that I actually decided to mention that. There we go. And it just visually it looks more the same to me because you have too much here to be the same as that little bit sticking out there, and I think it just looks a little bit better visually speaking. I know technically it's not the same, but it looks better visually to me. Alright, so I'm going to throw this guide out because I don't need that. And I'm going to actually save these as images all the way across. And that will make it very easy to make sure that this is the size I want it to be, because it will have to be, because they're images. I can use images as a spacer when I'm designing things, because if I tell the image to be a certain size, it will be that size. So it will make sure that its container has to be that size. And if you haven't quite figured out what I'm talking about yet, I'm talking about tables. Some of you guys have been watching the Mario videos and kind of seeing how I built that Mario graphic, and a lot of you are saying tables. And whether or not you're correct, I certainly could have built it that way. And so tables contain things, and this isn't how it was meant to be. Tables were supposed to hold data, but once we started playing with them, we could do all sorts of things. And we can make a table a certain size, and we can make sure it is that size by having a graphic go that distance. And if you don't have a graphic that you want that size, what a lot of people did was they had an invisible graphic. They had a 1x1 transparent GIF, and I'll show you how to create that later. And they use that as a spacer, so that way they could make sure that their page was a certain width or a certain height, because they would tell it to be that height or that width, and then it has to because it's an image, and it would force the table to be that exact same size. And so I'll show you that. Don't worry, I'll show you that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my slice tool. I'm going to zoom out so you can see everything. I'm going to go to my slice tool, and once again slice from guides. And I have a whole bunch here now, but that's okay, it doesn't matter. Now I'm going to go to save for web, and what's cool is I don't have to do them one by one. I did these one by one up here, right, the banner, but I can click on, ooh, I missed it. How did I miss that? Alright, that's okay, cancel. Go back. Let's zoom in, and let's fix this little guideline here. Yeah, look at that. It's just slightly off, 1 pixel off. Should be there. Alright. Slices, slice from guides, now save for web. And now the cool thing is I can click on each one of these, and I can hold shift, and I can click on another, and another, and another. I'm not clicking between, just the ones that I want to save. And I don't need this because I've got it right there. And I have just these 5 now. I'm going to do save. And did I put that in images? Right, Cloud Share Review. Oh, I forgot it did that. Oh, I forgot to press a button. I forgot to press a button. That's okay. It just complicates things. So, in my Cloud Share Review folder, I'm going to make this I'm just going to call it menu, because they're all things in the menu, and I can rename them later. And instead of all slices, I need to put selected slices, and that was my mistake in the other one. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And now I'm going to undo slice from guides. Actually, I'm going to undo a bunch of these guides too, because I don't need that many. There we go. So that looks much nicer. And now if we go to my folder, in images here, you can see each one of these menu items that I created. So there's the blue bar, about, clouds, reviews, contacts. Easy, awesome. Here's all the extra menu things that I didn't mean to save because I wasn't paying attention and I was talking instead, but that's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete this one. That's the one I want to keep, and I'm going to go ahead and delete these other banner ones. Alright, so now it does change the name a little bit, so I don't really want this called banner underscore 02. I just want it to be banner. Or maybe banner cloud share review. I don't necessarily need these in here, but Google treats these as spaces. So if I want it to see this as sort of like a series of words that are together, I can use that, and it will see them as spaces, so it will see this as cloud share review instead of cloud share review. So it will actually, like, you know, give me a little bit of extra credit of having images on here that are related to my page. Now each of these I can rename, so I'm just pressing return on my keyboard to rename it. So menu blue bar, menu about, menu clouds, menu reviews, menu contacts. Awesome.